Welcome back, fellas. So, on today's video, while I can't hide my disdain for this series, I love science fiction, especially mecha science fiction. So, I thought I'd try to explain a bit about the technology in the Ad Astra universe of G-Witch. To start with, let's start with the main driving material of this world, the material called permet. So, this material's most distinctive property is its incredibly high data transfer rates. I don't think this is the same thing like a superconductor material, but it's the resource where a lot of technologies in the Ad Astra universe is based on, and is mined on some of the other planets in the solar system. It's also a cause of conflict between Earthians and Spatians, where the Spatians have a monopoly on its distribution, but they don't mention anything further. This would have been a good plot element for the series. But anyway, a byproduct of this material is the presence of data storms. I'm guessing that even with the data signals being super dense in content and traveling very fast through the material, it would stand to reason that a certain amount of it might be lost in transit between processing sites. This would be the data that is present in the data storms. At least that's how I would see it. Now then, let's take a look at the main system in evaluating permet use. The permet score system, where the score of 1 is the lowest, and probably 8 being the known highest outside of that BS event in the last episode. Essentially, the higher the score, the larger and denser the data load, and the faster its transfer rate. Whether the permet material itself is required in larger amounts or in higher purity of refinements wasn't specified. So, we'll have to overlook it. Actually, no. I think it would require a high degree of permet material in either quantity or quality, or maybe both, because it was stated when they were trying to deal with the dense data field generated by the Quiet Zero Space Fortress. In order to move without issue within the data field generated by the Quiet Zero Space Fortress, they would need to clear a permet score of 5. At which point it was stated the Pharact Gundam wasn't designed to handle such a high score. This tells us two things. The first one being that permet score 4 is the maximum tolerable limit of a human. Both the enhanced humans, like the Elan doubles, and the 2 Earth Gundam pilots looked like score 4 was their tolerance limit. Suletta is a clone of Erict, which had full compatibility with the Gund format, and an unusually high level of tolerance to permet scores, so she's a freak of nature and doesn't count as a standard sample, a 1 in a few billion beneficial mutation complements of humans' genetic diversity. The second thing it tells us is that it was a hardware issue. If the latest model Gundams like the Pharact and even the Schwartz Et are unable to function in the Quiet Zero field that had a base score of 8, it would stand to reason that there were no Gund format components that would be constructed for such high permet scores greater than score 4. The main reason is that both the Pharact and Schwarzjet are Gundams for practical combat, not an experimental test machine like the Calibarn, which was meant to test the limits of the Gund format with relation to the permet score system. So there's no doubt it would use experimental components that had no regard for permet score restrictions. Speaking of the Calibarn, it was stated that a main feature of this Gundam was that it had no filters installed. That means to say that this was a key safety feature of practical Gundams, but after 21 years of stalled development, after Gundams were outlawed, where even Pale Technologies' own Gundam development program needed to be kept secret. They needed to move carefully around watchdog agencies like Dominicus. Who would have monitored the materials and components needed to construct these Gund format support systems? I'm guessing these filters. Like the name suggests, sort out data depending on certain criteria. For example, the data volume or size of data packages and so on. There is probably the concept of data noise as well. Data units that just disrupt the overall processing mechanism, making it riskier for the pilot. You would have to wonder if these filters could also affect permet scores to pilot risk ratio. The higher the permet score, the higher the pilot risk. Right? So, what I mean to say is that if the filter technology was refined enough, would let's say a data load of permet score 5 be downgraded to the pilot risk level of a lower score like 3, while still maintaining the benefits of a high score like 5 in terms of machine performance. It sounds like something that would have made the Gundam systems safer. But then nobody would want a mobile suit if it wasn't a Gundam, especially a Gundam with swarm weapons. So I guess the other mobile suit manufacturers would be out of luck, which I'm sure was one of the reasons they desperately wanted to outlaw Gundams at that point in time. It would be better for them if the current unstable and dangerous version of the Gund format remained as it was, without any further development. So it would be easier to make their case of a Gundam being a faulty product that ended their users. In any case, let's move on now to the Gund format and its main application as a mobile suit interface system. So, first thing, originally this was supposed to be used for medical cybernetics, but like all innovative technologies, it's first used in military applications before being used in consumer products. It's sending the data directly through the pilot's nervous system, but the amount of data is colossal when you think about it. You're receiving data from a complex 18-meter tall, full-body prosthesis. Your brain could not handle that kind of load along with overseeing the functioning of your actual body. But fortunately, you could adjust how much data you send yourself through the PerMet score system. The higher the score, the greater the risk, but the better the Gundam performs. This is one of those systems where you only go balls to the wall. All out only when you really need to, like if you're outnumbered. Or the guy you're facing is a super ace, but he doesn't use a Gund format equipped mobile suit. This was seen in the prologue where the two prototypes were overpowering elite soldiers from Dominicus. Until the dude with the antibody. Counter Gund format system showed up. This is actually a good segue into that system now. The Counter Gund format system, antibody. If they were going to call Gundams a curse, shouldn't they have called it something like Dispel or Remedy or something like that? Well, anyway, this looks like a proprietary technology belonging to one of the main mobile suit manufacturers, Grassley Defense Solutions. I say proprietary because only Grassley manufactured mobile suits were seen equipped with it. Incidentally, Grassley was the only company amongst the big three that didn't manufacture a Gundam-type mobile suit in the series. So this system works by inhibiting the data transferring properties of the PerMet used in the Gund format systems. Since everything goes black in the cockpit, it's like the entire chain of communication between the mobile suit's data network is completely stalled. No signal from the cockpit controls to any of the systems. No video feed. No communications, no weapons. Nothing. You are royally screwed. Or are you? This technology, while most likely the best counter to a Gundam besides using another Gundam, has severe limitations. The first one is that you have to get close to the Gundam to use it since the range is relatively short. It works by using two field generators that emit an overlapping field, which seems to interfere with the PerMet material's own inherent field. That most likely was responsible for its incredible data-traveling properties. I have to make a lot of assumptions here, so sorry about that. However, there seems to be a limit. The antibody is only effective at PerMet score 3. It's worthless against anyone at score 4 or higher. There's also the fact that the field emitters could be targeted and destroyed, disabling the system. But why a cap at score 3? So let's try to reason this out. I'm guessing that in order to generate a strong enough field to inhibit score 4 and higher, that has far higher data transferring loads and speeds than score 3 and lower. A vast amount of energy would be required. Probably far more than what a mobile suit's energy source could generate. If that's the case, and they did try to install a sufficient power source, the mobile suit may become a bigger and conspicuous target. There would also be the idea that maybe such a strong antibody field could affect the functioning of the PerMet used in the system's host mobile suit, making it inoperable as well, which defeats the point of the system. The antibody was designed to work on permet used in the GUND format mobile suit interface. But maybe the antibody field necessary to inhibit SCOR4 would be so powerful that non-GUND format using mobile suits would also be affected. Or as stated earlier, the system is set to score 3 because score 4 is the maximum cap for the above-average humans to handle, and those individuals would be quite rare. Speaking of above-average humans, let's move on to the enhanced human plan that Pale Technologies were implementing in hopes of making pilots for their own Gundam-type machines. It's clear that these guys are a direct nod to the cyber new types in the original series. Now, it stems to reason that since the human nervous system cannot handle high permit scores, Pale Technologies sought to implant a supplemental synthetic nervous system into living subjects to reduce the data load, allowing for a pilot that could handle permit score 4 and perhaps higher with relative ease, creating a super soldier that would go along with their high-performance Gundam. At the very least, it seems to have had some success as the fight between Ariel and Ferract showed he was able to use his swarm units and pilot the Ferract with mild discomfort until Soletta's plot armor. Oops, I meant plot field showed itself and immobilized the Ferract where her swarm units wrecked it. But even with the enhancements, test subject still expired. As for the reason, we'll move on to that now. It's the condition called information thermological entropy. The massive buildup of damage from overloading the pilot's nervous system with data via the GUND format interface and the accompanying data storm of permet scores. The appearance looks like irradiated lesions with circuit-like patterns. From what this looks like, the human cells have a strong affinity for the type of radiation emitted by the permet used in the GUND format interface, and the cells do not readily dissipate the energy before it causes long-term damage. From the looks of it, the rate this damage accumulates depends on the permit score, so even if someone were to use score 1 with the lowest possible risk, if they use it frequently, it may build up and bring about disabilities and most likely full systemic failure after a time. At higher scores, this damage would show up faster, crippling the pilot in less time than score 1. This is most likely the reason even the enhanced humans end up kicking the bucket. They may be able to handle the data loads, but they are unable to rapidly dissipate the radiation buildup. Before fatal damage has been done, it looks like the effects could be reversed with rehabilitation and that there was no further use of the GUND format, allowing the radiation buildup to slowly but surely dissipate. This just goes to show the crazy level of plot armor Soletta had. The energy released by achieving a permit score beyond its theoretical boundaries was enough to break down the Gundam's physical frames to particles. But Soletta escapes with a relatively mild case of radiation buildup. Instead of logically being broken down to particles as well, I'm calling BS, but it brings forth a question, even with all of these risks. The Gundams were still profitable to Oak's Earth, overpowering all other companies' mobile suit models. It means to say that the machine's performance was worth the risk. In a war game, if you could give up one of your soldiers to take out 20 or more enemy ones, it's well worth it from that perspective. This would have been an interesting angle to have explored in this series of how people were being used as expendable components for Gundam-type mobile suits to secure a regime's hegemony, and a resistance was being formed to rebel against this cruelty. But in the end, the resistance would ironically also need to use Gundams to fight against this inhumane practice. A dark, brutal setting that wouldn't be out of place in a Gundam series. But instead, we get Yuri Mecha Dueling Academy. Such bullcrap. Also, nobody forced anyone to pilot a Gundam. They did it of their own volition, took out many enemies, and probably helped their side win at the cost of their life. I'm assuming that anyway. Now, onto the final piece of technology for this video. To be honest, I don't know if I could call this a technology. The so-called Children of the Covenant, the versions of Eric that are housed in Ariel's swarm units, if I had to guess. While Eric inhabits the main body, the swarm units house a clone of Eric. I'm thinking of when you clone the data found on a hard drive. This would explain how each unit moves like a living being. Furthermore, each of the units is part of an interconnected network through the permit scores and data storms, giving them next-level responsiveness in forming the shield, buster rifle, or coordinated strikes in swarm mode. There is no AI that could keep up with that level of responsiveness. But the scary thing about this is how each of the units seem to have their own sense of self, how they interact with Suletta as though they were individual entities. Just imagine seeing a clone of yourself making different actions that you wouldn't say or do. It stands to reason that the only way to permanently eliminate Eric would be to destroy the Ariel and its swarm units completely. They kind of remind me of the Horcrux plot element from Harry Potter. But what do you guys think? I'll end the video here. Please like and subscribe. Till next time. Bye.